Morena, talofa. Good morning, everyone. I'm Trina Cooper. I'm the General Manager for Popup. Thank you for making the time today to be part of our 10th part of Pop-Up Chat. And today we're talking about the Pasifika initiative for pregnant mothers. The session will be recorded and will be made available on YouTube. Please note that your video image may be seen when we share the presentation, so feel free to turn your camera off, and if you can mute yourself as well. And then if you wish to ask a question, please use the chat function which you see at the bottom of your screen, and then we will address the questions at the end of the presentation. Our pop-up next week is with Carol Burrows, who is from Freedom Births, and she's talking about how doulas contribute positively to mothers and families' mental health. So we'll be sending details out about that pop-up later on with this recording. And I'll now hand over to Lucia and Sarah from the Te Amanino Trust, who are based here in Porirua.
Thank you very much, Trina. Kia ora, talawhalawa, malo ni, malo lei. Whakalawhalahi atu ni sapulu vanaka. Malo soi fumanwima langi ma. I'm Lucia Cassiano, and as Trina said, we're with our Manino Trust. And I'll just do quick introductions. In terms of where I hail from, I hail from the island of Samoa. And at the moment, I am currently the team manager at our Manino Trust, overseeing the Family Start program as well as the Antenatal, our new program, the Antenatal program. My background is in social work, having worked in social work for about 20 years, both in statutory education and with community agencies. So good to be here. I'm going to just hand it over to Sarah to introduce herself.
Good morning, everybody. Kia ora. Talawhalawa, malori nei. Welcome. My name is Sarah Teorima. My role, I work with Te Amanino Trust, have been for 6 years now, well, fairly soon. My role here is the antenatal coordinator. Like Lucia mentioned, it's a new program. My profession is in social work, so I transferred from the Family Start team, and now I'm delivering this program. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah. Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Look, before we get started, I am going to do a bit of a disclaimer and say that we are very much learners in this space. And so the program that we are talking about is an antenatal education program, one that is still developing as we are working through it. And hopefully we'll be guided by what our families tell us in terms of what information is useful through this program, and what are some of the learnings that we can gain in order to be able to reach the clientele that we are targeting. And so, but it's good to be able to have the conversation and continue to talk. So the program itself is called Oioa Ona Pepe, our pregnancy journey. Oioa Ona Pepe is literally translated journey and baby. And so before I go on to the program, I just wanted to give an overview of our Manino Trust, because I also think that sets the context in terms of the way that we're going to be delivering this program. So we're based in Porirua and deliver services. Well, based in Porirua, we deliver services to the wider Wellington region. Our organisation is one of the largest Pacific organisations within the Lower North Island, delivering services in counselling and in social work, social services. And so there's a range of programs that the Manino Trust deliver, from social workers in schools through counselling, adolescents' mental health, alcohol and other drugs, family violence, Family Start is one, as well as whānau ora or Pasifika families. We also have a couple of other new programs that we deliver, which is the Youth Transition Program, as well as whānau resilience. And so, sorry, I also forgot to mention home-based services and problem gambling. So there's a range of services that Manino deliver that I think aligns quite nicely with antenatal care and is able to provide wraparound services to our ainga. So in terms of Oewa and Bebe, our pregnancy journey, this is a pilot antenatal program for mothers and whānau ainga families in the Porirua region. The idea behind this is really to try and target Māori, Pacific, refugee migrant mothers, mothers that are hard to reach. We know from a raft of research that attendance in antenatal classes or education is very low, particularly for Māori and Pasifika. And so one of the things that in line with the CCDHP, which is Capital and Coast DHP, is to look at how can we deliver this and capture that cohort or group that is very, and be able to provide information where there is potential, risk or where there are concerns around other various determinants of health. And so that's one of the reasons why Te Manino became engaged. The delivery of the program is very much flexible. It's a mixed mode delivery. And so obviously some of the learnings that we've gained from previous antenatal classes is that there are trouble in our mums getting to group sessions. Things like transport, childcare, finances, time, all barriers in terms of being able to access antenatal care. Well, not so much antenatal care, but the antenatal classes. And so our learning has been from Family Start program in that home visits work in terms of capturing that hard to reach high risk group. And so for this program, it is going to be 8 sessions of delivery. Sorry, it's 8 sessions in the home and 2 would be group sessions. The idea is that obviously relationships are really important for our ingas, and so being able to establish those relationships. Some of the barriers that we've heard from mums have been about connections within groups and the information that's been provided in those sessions. And so the thinking behind this program has been that, we go into the homes where mums and their whānau are already there, and to be able to hear some of the stories that they of where they're at, some of the goals and aspirations that they have for this unborn child, as well as to explore some of the thinking, the history, the experiences that they've had in terms of their own lived experiences, because that obviously influences how they perceive their current pregnancy. So it's being able to understand what that looks like for them. The key outcomes that we hope to be able to get from the program, obviously it's very simple, that by the time, that baby is born healthy and thriving and loved, and that parents are informed and confident in their ability to be parents and to care for their baby, but also confident in knowing where they can go to be able to get information or source resources that they may require. The other part too is that any issues that are identified, that they are picked up early. And so those are the key aims. Do you need anything else to this program? as I've noted, relationships are really crucial in terms of being able to engage and being able to deliver this program. And so I guess the framework around it is taking a whole of family approach, that each person within this journey will have their own experiences or just thinking around what they're going to expect. And so the idea here is just thinking around what the needs of the unborn child is, the needs of the expectant mother and her well-being, expectant father or partner. We know that there's quite diverse makeups in family, as well as identify the community of support. And so those are the key relationships within this program that we've been able to identify. We're hopeful that in this process that we'll be able to support all those relationships. And I know for sure that sometimes a lot of the emphasis is on the expectant mother, and that the role of the father or the partner is kind of secondary, obviously, to the pregnant mama. And so one of the things that we are hopeful to do in going into the home is being able to allow the dad to be in that space as well. And I think Sarah had talked about an experience where a father had spoken about, mood changes within mum, and all of a sudden it just happened. And talking through some of the information that he kind of connected with and was able to be able to share his story. In terms of the community support, obviously that would be also inclusive of whānau or ainga in that space. We know that some of our families are very good at giving information, and when you're a new parent or an expectant parent, sometimes as part of that transition from life before baby to life after baby, you don't know what you don't know. And so all the information that people give you can be a bit of an information overload. And I'll talk about some of the cultural aspects to that a little bit later. So yes, key relationships. I just finished talking about the transitional phase, life before baby and life after baby, and really being for new parents to understand what that change could look like. Like I said, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and it can be quite an anxious time. It can be a happy time for families. It can also be quite an anxious time for all people that are involved in the pregnancy journey. In terms of the delivery of the program, we know that not one size fits all, which is why we are going into the home. And in order to be able to work with our diverse communities, we need to be able to understand exactly where their starting point is. And part of that is to also understand how culture fits in that space, the different roles that people will be playing, people's different lived experiences, the stories of migration, also has an impact, as well as their learning styles. In terms of culture, obviously culture is subjective. It is in the eyes of the person who determines what culture is to them, and so that will vary. And I've heard quite often, the difficulties in working with Pacific. In saying that, Pacific is made up of about 22 independent nations who are in their own right have their own, laws and things like that, cultural structures, society norms, all of those things. And so what we also know through the stories of migration is that in our current context, that's beginning to shift within New Zealand. And so while in, earlier years, there's been a lot of focus on first-time migrants. What we are seeing is actually about over 60% of Pacific are actually born in New Zealand. And so the transition from how people transition when they first arrive into New Zealand also impacts the next generation. And part of that talk about is the notion of acculturation, that people, you know, depending on how the first generation had acculturated within the host country, in this case it's New Zealand, will be dependent on how the next generation then views that world. And so things like assimilation, you know, the people replacing Pacific with New Zealand culture, integration, they identify and able to negotiate dual worlds. Separation, they only maintain one culture, you know, either Pacific, or they kind of so they separate from the Pacific culture. And marginalisation, where they withdraw from both cultures. And so some of the stories that we're seeing, or the trends that we're seeing, is that is having an impact on the next generation and how their lived experiences are in their understanding around parenting, around pregnancy, around all of that kind of stuff. So the story of understanding, I guess what I'm wanting to kind of put out there is that understanding the background on how people are the way that they are, and the stories that they have, their history, but it's beyond just from in terms of migration, but also kind of sets the tone in terms of how the path that has led to the pathways that they're in now. So hopefully that all makes sense. One of the other things that we also know is that people have different learning styles. And so the program will hopefully cater to an understanding people's lived experiences, understanding the way that they, their own history, we would be hopeful to understand the different ways that they learn. And so incorporate that into the program, which is why the program looks at that one-on-one home visiting program, to be able to capture that without the pressure of having everybody else in a group setting. And so I was trying to change this, but I don't know how to change it. So one of the approaches that we've talked about is an approach that we utilise here at Antenatal Trust, which is a VAR-centred approach. It's a framework for engagement. Like I said, people have different understandings of the world that has helped shape their worldview and their lived experiences. But people are also their own personal agent, you know, that they have aspirations or dreams to be able to achieve certain goals. And so in this space, what we talk about is that we will come in with a different set of knowledge, and that our families will have their own set of knowledge. And as workers, it will be about being able to look at the bar between myself as a worker and the client that I'm working with, or the ainga that I'm working with, and then being able to see or negotiate a working relationship between us and the family, and vice versa. And so one of the things in terms of VAR-centred approach, so VAR is space, and there is meaning. So on its own, it is just space, but there is meaning in terms of that space when you add other words. Like for Samoans, it will be Tausileba, which is tidy the space, or care for the space, or nurture the space. And for Tongas, it might be Tahi Deva, But there will also is a concept that is known within Pacific around relational spaces and the importance of relationships and being able to maintain those relationships in a space of harmony. And so what we know with some of the families that we access, there are times when our families or the cohort that we are looking at delivering to, where there are stresses that occur that disrupt the harmony within those spaces, the relationships within their home. And those anxieties will obviously vary. Some might be just the anxiety of pregnancy, not knowing what to do. And for others, you know, it might be more severe in terms of mental health in that space. And for partners, or vice versa, being able to support in those spaces as well. And so some of the families that we have engaged with are families who have been exposed to alcohol and other drugs, family violence, and have their own history of some form of trauma. And so our idea is just more to be able to go in and talk through some of those things. It's you know, no judgment, but being able to negotiate a space where we have a starting point where we can hopefully support and provide additional information and build on the current knowledge that families already have, in the context of which, you know, in the cultural context in which they have understood that well. And so I'm just quickly reading my notes. Yeah, so that's our centre practice in terms of the way that we do this program. I've already talked about the fact that there are complex systems that our families engage with, and those complexities are, you know, within their own self in terms of some of their own well-being. It might be within relationships. It might be challenges in being able to understand the systems in which they are exposed to, and being able to navigate through those systems. And so some of the things that we would do within the program would be to support in that space. With this antenatal program, I'm not going to talk too much about the curriculum because that is something that we're still learning and we're still needing to make sense of ourselves. In terms of, you know, we have the curriculum, but we've yet to deliver finish the delivery of the curriculum and then be able to learn from those spaces. And so within the program, just being able to sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. Sorry, within the program, one of the things that we wanted to do was to be able to link with our Family Start program. So Family Start is an early intervention program, and it works quite nicely with the antenatal care. And so in terms of the coordination that Sarah will be facilitating in terms of the program, alongside that, we hope with the consent of the families that we will be able to have Family Start there. And so part of that would be able to link to other services, as well as for Family Start to be able to support with some of the social needs that the family has, particularly around housing and financial support. Obviously with COVID at the moment, it has brought some stresses into our families' homes and being able to access resources. And so the program hopefully will be able to, actually at the moment it's working quite nicely and threads quite nicely into the Family Start program, to be able to support in those spaces. So that's a bit about the antenatal program that we will be delivering. So if you have any questions, please ask.
Well, I think it's going to be great. When the parents as first teachers got sort of removed a few years ago, you know, there's always been this gap, hasn't there, about you know, having somebody come into the family home, check that home environment, and find activities and things that the parents can do with their babies at home. And you know, that's been missing for a while. And I think with you guys coming in antenatally and initiating these things, you know, from a very, very sort of early time before the baby comes, and you can sort of help get the room set up, the family dynamics and things too. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. In terms of, I forgot to mention that in terms of the group session, so while the in-home visits are, you know, one-on-one with the family, the expectant mum and family, the group sessions will be the opportunity to invite the professionals into that space. It's you know, we're hopeful. We haven't yet delivered the group session, but we are hopeful that through the relationship building that we've had with our families, that they would be comfortable in terms of having other professionals in that in a group setting space, so that they can hear the information all in one go. And so part of that would look at breastfeeding, and so we are connected with the breastfeeding unit here at CCDHB, as well as so sleeping. Yeah. So sleeping midwives, and we are getting some referrals from midwives as well, as the program is slowly expanding. So obviously this program would not be successful if, you know, and us just delivering it on our own. We will need support from other professionals, because you know, in terms of our area of expertise, it is in being able to coordinate and the knowledge base that we have around Pasifika, but in terms of the specialised knowledge, that's the stuff that we will need from support and connections with other organisations. And so we are connected with a range of different organisations that are supporting, that will be looking at supporting in our space and delivering some of their programs in the group settings. So that's the idea of the group settings, and then we go back into individual setting in the home as preparation for baby and birth, and supporting some of the plans that would already be in place with the midwives or whoever the LNC is.
It sounds like that kind of a mixed model provides some really good opportunities for, as you said, for making connections and tailoring it to the particular needs. Is this include things that would typically be in antenatal education, about childbirth education, those sorts of things, or is this separate from that?
It will include childbirth education, and we are seeking the support of the midwife to be able to deliver that information. Obviously, there's specific knowledge in that space. That is quite specialised, and so that would be something that we are looking at a midwife to deliver as part of the group session.
Oh, I see. So up here, and I don't know how much down there, but he's certainly in the Waikato and in Auckland there are programs called Hapuwananga, which sounds a subset, sounds like, of what you're trying to do, kind of, for, but it is entirely this group on the marae typically, but kind of culturally embedded antenatal education, but they don't have that individual component.
A lot of this learning comes from the visits that we do with our families through the Family Start program. And it was just timely that people in Coast DHB were looking for an organisation to be able to do something differently from traditional delivery and antenatal care, particularly in trying to target Māori and Pasifika participants who really don't, that their attendance in traditional programs is low.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you. Are there any more questions? We've got Linda online as well. Linda, have you got anything that you want to ask at all? Right.
I'm all good, thank you.
Fantastic.
Couldn't find the mute button. Thanks. Very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, well, we'll just say a thank you to Lucia and Sarah. The recording will be made available later with all the information here as well, and they're easily accessible with the Te Menino Trust website as well, if anybody wants further information about that. And it's just a good way to acknowledge what's happening around New Zealand, just to be able to help support everyone that's living in our country. And the best way to give them the best start possible on their parenting journey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much, Trina.
Great, you're welcome. Nice to see you both, and thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Great,
Bye.
thanks.